Okay, looks like we're recording
Yeah.
now. All right. Good morning and welcome to this virtual career discovery session. We're so excited to have David Purdy, who is joining us to talk about photography. Dave, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. If you want to introduce yourself, that'd be great.
Yeah, great. Yeah, like she said, my name's David Purdy. I've been a photographer for many years, for 36 years. I went to a 2-year school. I went to Hawkeye College in Waterloo. I grew up in Ankeny, and I've been a working photographer since the age of 20. So I mostly spent my career as a newspaper photographer, but in that career, I had a vast coverage area where we did portraits every day. We did fashion, we did food photography, we did sports photography, we did feature photography, we did news, sports, all that sort of thing. So I got a pretty vast knowledge of photography in that career. So I can't hear you.
Super. Great. So can you talk a little bit about some of the careers within your industry, just sort of how that varies? Photography obviously is not real narrow. There's a lot you can do. And then talk a little bit about the varying levels of education or training that those require.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of photography now. When you think about it, what's on your phone, it's all pictures and video. I mean, that's where we're all living right now. So product photography for when you buy things online, portrait photography, obviously, you can be a wedding photographer, you can be a senior picture photographer, you can be a family photographer, you can just be a baby photographer you wanted to. Downtown Des Moines, if you've ever been near Central Campus, down there, you'll see the giant mural building next to it. Well, that's Meredith Corp, and they do all this magazine photography that really entails pictures of everything and anything, from the farming industry to, like I said, parenting, to food, tons of food photography, tons of architectural photography, landscape photography, those sort of things. And in related fields, a lot of times people that manage websites, they want people that they hire to know about how to shoot product or portraits for the business that they're running, because everything we do, it's mostly online now, and it needs pictures. We're not going to click on things and just read a big page full of print. I mean, we can, but it usually has pictures accompanying it.
Awesome. So when you think about if somebody wants to go into photography and they're thinking more of working with people and families versus needing to really understand how to shoot food or a product or something like that, what sort of training or education, is there a difference there, or is it all sort of the same?
Well, there is a difference in the training. You want to go to places like DMACC. Ankeny campus has a photography program that I'm actually in charge of now. And there's my alumni, Hawkeye College in Waterloo, and then even in Fort Dodge, there's Iowa Central.
Central, yep.
In Indian Hills, but that's Southern Iowa Central. But they all three have a photography program, and in each of our photography programs, and I can speak for mine the most because I'm most familiar with it, we do have portrait photography classes from a working portrait photographer. We have commercial photography classes from people that do commercial photography or product photography. And you learn to hone your skills specifically to that area that you're interested in. But as part of like a basic certificate is 6 classes. An advanced certificate in photography is another 6 classes. And an associate degree is 64 credit hours. So that generally all classes are 3 credit hours for that.
Great.
So you can have, there's a lot of opportunity in education depending on how short you want to go to school or long type of thing.
Awesome. If anyone hears growling, it's because I have a new puppy. So just ignore the barking and growling. So thinking about that, I'm, you've had so many experiences. What do you love about your job, and maybe a favorite experience that you've had as a photographer?
Oh, people. You just get to go see people, you get to see new places, you get to travel. I'm sitting in an office now, but most of the time I had a big roller camera bag and smaller camera bags and all this gear in my car, and lighting equipment and tripods and stuff. And I was in the car going somewhere, and learning about new things. I did a lot of storytelling type photography. So I got to learn about all these different professions and trades type of thing. One time, I've done several assignments overseas, but one of the neatest ones was I flew to the Panama Canal and I was there for 5 days. And so we just flew to another country and then, got off the plane. I was working with the military and doing a story on the cargo planes and how they served all South America. So we went to Ecuador and flew a bunch of different places, but just to go work in another country and see another culture and photograph, the people there and the mission that we were doing. We got to do both. And so we got to be tourists and kind of do travel photography type pictures, and then do the tasks that we had for that too. So that was pretty neat. And then
Sounds really cool.
Yeah. And then the second favorite was when I flew for, when I worked as a newspaper photographer, the hurricane hunters that fly in all the hurricanes that happen in the Gulf of Mexico and such, they were out of the city that I worked in. So I got to fly with them during a hurricane one time, which it's fun, but yeah, it's scary,
Yeah, that might be a little terrifying. Can you talk about the hardest part of your job? What's the most challenging part of being a photographer professionally?
Well, nowadays I'd say it's just staying up with technology and the cameras and all that. They're challenging, they're fun, but you don't want to fall behind in that. But the other part, what I would say is that sometimes that you do work odd hours. So if you're going to be mostly that's it. The technical stuff, if you just read all online and all that, that's easy to step on. But let's say you're a portrait photographer, well, then you're going to work from probably 3 till dark in the afternoon or in evenings, or it's there's a lot of scheduling and a lot of things like that just take up time. So if you're looking for an 8 to 5 kind of thing, then you might want to be a product photographer, because that's more 8 to 5 and then you're done at the end of the day. But if you're an architectural photographer or if you're a portrait photographer, then the hours are different for that. It's not necessarily an indoors job. I mean, there are some places like that just are still brick and mortar studio you walk into, but
yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? You get family pictures when the light is beautiful in the evenings, right? And then the other things you could do inside and light specifically.
Yeah, and early mornings. I didn't mention that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get up super early and you get the beautiful sunrise. To get the beautiful sunrise picture, you have to be there before sunrise. So
if you want to get a great shot of something, say you want to get that beautiful sunrise, maybe talk me through that. From somebody's asked you to come take a beautiful sunrise photo over the city of Des Moines. What does that look like, from getting ready and getting equipment to getting set up to actually getting the shot and then breaking things down? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that would entail, I would do a lot of scouting beforehand, and scouting in the exact area I wanted, and finding the best location and just shooting pictures during daylight and understanding the correct focal length lens or the correct lens to put on, and spend some time with that. And there's actually apps that you can get on your phone. They're pretty neat. It tells you the exact time and where in the sky the sun comes up and how it will hit the light, where the exact street that you're on. So it's pretty neat. We learn about that. We have a landscape assignment in one of the classes here at DMACC, and we learn about the app and how to scout a location and pick a time, and then exactly when sunrise is and kind of where in the sky the sun is going to be at for an hour, let's say. So you get to plan out that. And I always tell my students, show up early and stay late. And then that way, if you know where you want to go, then getting up early in the morning isn't as painful, because nobody's going to see you anyway. It's dark. You just roll out of bed and you've got your gear all ready to go, and you know what you're going to do, and where you're going to do it. And you just show up, set up, and just sit there and wait for the sun to come up. I've done that many a times. I literally would watch the the Weather Channel to track the sun before the app was invented. I did a lot of work on my own that way.
Fascinating. Can you talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of the business of being a photographer? Say if you're on your own, or doing freelance, or you have your own business, because I would imagine, you mentioned scheduling. I would imagine that there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes, that it's not just the taking and editing the beautiful picture, the business piece of it.
Yeah, the business piece of it is, you've got to know a little bit about contracts and starting your own business, and some brand name stuff like QuickBooks if you want to do that for your billing. And there's all these different companies that have automated programs to do your billing, and some people use accountants to do their billing, and you have to get a tax ID number, not just your social security number. So a lot of those things are easy to learn. You can take some basic marketing classes here at DMACC and learn that stuff, or any community college. And then in like our photography program, we talk about being in business in the portrait class and in the commercial class. When you're in business, what's a smart thing to do for contracts, and what's a good day rate to charge, and what's the appropriate different rates for different places. And so you need to have a little bit of business sense. You can't have a shoebox full of receipts. You can, but what you're going to end up doing is pulling out your smartphone, shooting a picture of those receipts, and scan them into your computer, and putting them all on a big PDF file, and or a Word file, and sending them to an accountant, or if you do your own accounting type of deal. I have somebody do it for me just to get me more money, because I'm convinced I could do an okay job. But I hire an expert for that.
Super. What advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing a career in photography?
Shoot pictures, shoot more pictures, and then when you're done doing that, shoot some more pictures. Get that camera in your hands and get to know it really well, and then seek out a school. I don't know, whatever works for you. There's 3 of them here in Iowa. We were very fortunate with that. There's, and the difference between the schools here in Iowa, I don't want to lay this out. There's art photography school, and those are usually 4-year schools. But if you want to just do photography and shoot photography, you want to be at DMACC or at Iowa Central or at Hawkeye. DMACC, we've got a lot of cool stuff to do down here in the metro. Those other places are nice. I've lived in Cedar Falls, Waterloo. It just depends on where you want to go, but you want to lay out a plan like that. A lot of people think, oh, I can just watch some videos on the internet and I know. Well, they don't talk back to you. You need coaching, and coaching and hands-on education, instead of, we all can watch things and learn things online. That's the wonderful part about technology, but being, with an instructor, with an expert that's actually working still in their craft, versus someone that doesn't work in the profession type of thing is very helpful.
Great. What is your favorite? I don't know if this is a good photography question or not, but what's your favorite camera? Do you have a favorite camera that is like your go-to piece of equipment that you love?
Yeah, I tell people if I won the lottery, I'd buy about 3 or 4 brands of cameras, because I spent most of my career using a Nikon. Now I own a Canon camera system. I have a love-hate for both of them. And I have a little bit of familiarity with the Sony and the Fuji cameras. But right now I'd say Canon's my favorite, but I'm kind of leaning back to Nikon. I've got friends that work for both corporations. selling their gear, and the Nikon guy wrote a very good pitch on some new cameras that just are coming out. And I thought, oh, you know, I could buy some more Nikon gear and go back to Nikon. So it's funny. I'm kind of 50-50. I love both of those. And we have both those brands here at DMACC. Got a whole locker full of lenses and cameras that students can check out.
Awesome. How much, just the equipment piece of that fascinates me. So, you know, if you inventoried all the things, and I know you have access to DMACC, but about how much money do you think a photographer has invested in the equipment that they have and need to do their job?
Oh, it can be a lot. It could be as little as $3,000 to $5,000 just for a very basic kit. You know, some students here just start off in the $1,500 range and work and build. And that's kind of what you do through your career, as you build your equipment, or depending on your specialty. I have about $35,000 worth of stuff collected for myself and my gear. But some of my stuff is very specialty. Yeah, you know, I've got one lens that's a $10,000 lens. So and a $5,900 camera. So you see kind of half of it's the two cameras and a lens, and then the other stuff's cheaper type of deal. But at DMACC, we've got almost $200,000 worth of studio photography gear and cameras and lenses and other things, all right here on property for people to check out and use and that sort of thing. And I know Hawkeye has that. Iowa Central does not have any of that.
Great. Can you tell me a little bit then about that after the shoot, that processing the photographs and what that looks like, and how you go about that, and maybe working with the client to pick out the shots that they like, and that whole back end piece?
Yeah, the cool thing is a lot of times if you work with an ad agency or a business, sometimes there'll be an art director, sometimes there'll be a prop director, and sometimes there's, even if you're doing food photography, there's a food editor, which is a writer, and the art director is usually a graphic designer, and then they help you conceptualize stuff. And sometimes you work with a food stylist, which is a chef that styles food, that does that sort of thing. And then you work through very specific shot list that they want for whatever concept of whatever food dish, let's just say, and we'll use that scenario, that they want. And then you get those images, and there's various ways people want stuff in post-processing, but you use Adobe Lightroom or Capture One software, which is like Adobe Lightroom or Adobe Photoshop. And you do some post-processing with that. And depending on the client, some of them don't want you to do anything. They have their own people that do the crafting on the images. And sometimes you have to do the adjustments and things after the shoot. So, and then once you do that, you export them however they want them for their business. There's some people want them on hard drives. Some people want to send them on the internet with different programs. And it's pretty neat. We do from very basic of Lightroom and Photoshop here, and I've learned all that in my career, basic Lightroom and Photoshop, and then I learned advanced Lightroom and Photoshop, and so I can do a lot of things. I'm not a retouching expert. I leave that to them. That's why they're good at what they do, and I'm good at what I do.
So there's a distinction there between the photographer and then somebody who's going back. You can do both, but there can also be a distinction that you would work with somebody else who has more of the expertise in that photo editing.
Yes, absolutely. And there's a whole department of those people that, you know, an imaging specialist room, a digital image specialist. And that's a whole career too that you can learn about. And I know people that have just become professional retouchers, and I'm a colleague that does just weddings for people, and some people, you know, that they're kind of higher end photographer that, let's just say, they charge $5,000 for a wedding, and they pay my colleague $500 to tone their images from the wedding and create a basic wedding book. And then so the other person does 20 weddings a year, and 500 times 20, you know, they make some good money.
Yeah, great. Can you talk a little bit about the job outlook? Where do you see photography going in the future, and people who are thinking about this, what do you think the outlook is for them to get into this career?
I think it's good. I mean, going back to all the smartphones and the iPads and everything we use, everything has photography in it. I mean, everything, every single thing you're seeing, they have. A lot of advertisements have what you call lifestyle photography. People looking happy, doing whatever they're buying whatever clothes they want to buy, or shopping somewhere, or eating somewhere. Um, People take pictures of that. Then there's the portrait photography, which kind of had a lull for a little while lately with, kind of the situation all of us are in right now. And now it's booming again. I think everybody was kind of cautious in the spring, and then the summer got on. It's outside, and everybody's, every portrait photographer friend of mine is just working a lot nowadays and booking weddings, and as people get on with their lives. So I don't think that, somebody asked me the other day, there must be a big slowdown in the industry, and I said I don't really see it. I've seen people that have made the right safety adjustments, and indoors and outdoors, and Meredith Corp, they're working downtown. My freelance photographer friends, I've got one that's shoots a ton of stuff out in San Francisco, and he's out there shooting product photography for about the next 4 to 6 weeks. He got a bunch of work recently, so it's good.
Good. Do you see a lot of people who do photography as sort of a part-time side business in addition to what they would typically, like a different type of career? Can you talk maybe a little bit about that, if you're not going to go fully into photography, but it's something you'd want to do on the side?
Yeah, let's say you're a graphic designer, but you love photography, and you're going to go to school for graphic design or architecture, but you love photography. And you say, well, or web design, one of those things. And you say, well, I want to do this as a career. Oh, it's absolutely. I know a ton of people that do part-time stuff and love it, and have 8 to 5 jobs, and then in the evening, when the light is nice, or the weekends, they do that. And a lot of my students will keep their part-time jobs, and then have a part-time photography business, and they mold them together that way. Or they get a good job, even if they have a 40-hour-a-week job. One scenario was, one student had a 5-year plan to launch her own business in 5 years, and she grew her business part-time on the side and kept her job at Target, and she was assistant manager over there. At the end of 5 years, she just quit that job, and now she's a full-time photographer. So I tell students, you might not just walk out the door and then magically have a full-time business. Sometimes the better scenario is to say, well, I want to do this part-time and grow the clientele, or grow my name in the community where I'm at, where I set up shop. People get to know me, word of mouth gets out, I advertise more, and then I grow, and then I can launch it, or I can collaborate, with 2 or 3 other people, and maybe rent or share a space all together. Because there's a ton of collaboration, people that want a space to do some work or client stuff, and they share the expense of renting a space together.
Sure. Yeah, that's great. So you're talking about collaborating. I'm curious, what are the most important skills in your mind for somebody who wants to be a photographer? What do they need to have in terms of their personal competencies?
Well, that's a good point. When I was young, I was very shy. I didn't like talk to a lot of people, and now I talk too much probably. But you want to get your technical skills down. You want to get all that down in your knowledge in your head. But then you just have to slow down and have some communication skills, and that's just having a simple conversation with people, and just kind of putting them at ease, and being able to talk to people, and work with people, and kind of get to know them. Because if you're shooting their portrait, that sure helps you get that moment, or that personality in that person drawn out. And I tell people, it's just as simple as sitting down and talking to people like they've been your friend or neighbor for your whole life. So when we learn how to do all the technical stuff, and we're practicing shooting pictures of each other in the studio, and we don't talk to the city or the person getting their picture made, I remind the student that the longer you leave them hanging there, the more paranoid they get about having their picture made. So we learn that in school, but I learned that as a photographer too. You just slow down, you know, have some good communication. It takes you a lot of places. I've got a friend, he's an okay photographer. I'd give him a B. He's never going to be an A, but he's got the personality of an A+, and he's just this fun-loving, great guy, and he does really good pictures, solid pictures. Like I said, B+. He's never going to be, you know, the A+ guy, but boy, he everybody loves him, and he takes pictures all the time.
Yeah, developing that rapport, and it sounds like it's just so critical. Well, we've got just a few more minutes. I'm wondering if there's anything else that we haven't covered that you would want to share, or maybe talk a little bit about the DMACC program. I know you talked about there being a couple different options there, but is there anything else that students should know or you'd like to share about the program?
Yeah, like I said, the program, the great part is, if you're just like me, when I was in school, I was like, I do not want to take another math class or English class or speech class. I'm just done. And so I built out here, the basic certificate class is 6 photography classes. Okay. The advanced photography certificate is 6 photography classes. There's no, if you don't have money or time or interest in you know, like I said, English, speech, you know, sociology, whatever, you know, if you don't want to take any more gen eds and you have a limited budget, those are great options. Or if you say, I'm a web designer, I'm a graphic designer, I'm an animation person, or you want to come do the video photography program here, then you can get a certificate in photography and back and forth. So there's very affordable ways to go to school, rather than if you don't have the monies or the time to do 2-year degree. And we have a 2-year degree too. So we have more options than those other schools. It's just a 2-year degree or nothing with them. So that's the biggest difference there. And, you know, we're starting to do in-person tours here. We can do virtual tours if you wanted, you know, interest-wise. You know, we've got those capabilities here. And we're always available. I'm current on my email.
That's impressive.
Pretty much every day. Yeah, there's only one person I need to email back today, and she's been waiting a week. And I saw her, I was on my bike the other day and I saw her running down the trail, and I forgot to email her back, but she's just wanting to know about spring, so I'm not in too much trouble.
Good deal. Well, it sounds like photography has really created for you a full and rich and wonderful life. What do you think that being a photographer has done for you? Like, what does that mean to you, being a photographer? What's sort of the essence of that for you?
Oh, it's just, it just opened up a ton of things. Like I said, I would have probably never gone all the places I went and met all the people I've met. You know, I would have just done regular things and not done exciting things or gone places. And just the people, a lot of times I tell people, I said, it's just the other photographers I meet, the art directors, the families, the people, those sort of things. It's just the joy. When I was a newspaper photographer for years, people wave at me all the time, and I'd wave back, and sometimes I remember who they were and sometimes I wouldn't, but I thought I would know. I would say, well, I've taken their picture, and they have a really, you know, vivid memory of how great that was. And it for the most part, like I said, that was the cool part, is just somebody being happy to, you know, have met you and you meet them, and just the adventure part of it. You know, it wasn't all flying to Panama Canal all the time, but sometimes it was just learning about really cool things that you never knew anything about.
Fantastic. Well, David Purdy, thank you so much for talking with us about photography. And this has been great. I've learned a lot, and I'm really glad that the students could participate too. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.